Gittavach. Today in Shul, our Rav spoke, Rabbi Fishbein, soll gesund sein. I want to apologize, I haven't been able to make it to Mincha over there. I've been davening elsewhere because whatever schedules with babysitting with the kids, with my wife and things, so I want to apologize, I haven't been able to put up the Divrei Torah, I haven't been able to make it there. Fishbein says, today, some issues of the and it says a Kohen Gadol that the Kohen Gadol, once the high priest passes away, then anybody who was in a city of refuge got to go free. The question he had, the Chassam Sofer's kasha actually, because it says it says shouldn't take any ransom, shouldn't take any bribes. To get free from the miklat, you have to wait until the Kohen Gadol passes away, and then the person who committed unintentional manslaughter could be freed from the city of refuge. Now, he says, why would that even make a difference? If they took a bribe, how does bribery stop the person, who wants to take revenge and all these things? What does it even come in the picture? Chassam Sofer explains, that we're talking about in the times of the Second Temple. The Torah had foresight that the office of the Kohen Gadol became awfully corrupted under the Roman rule. The Gemara in Yuma tells us that there was dozens upon dozens, maybe even hundreds of Kohanim Gadolim during Bayis Sheni, during the Second Temple, particularly in the Roman times. Why? We see, for example, in the Mishnah, very interestingly, it says Rabbi Chanina's Gana Kohanim. There was Rabbi Chanina. He was the vice high priest of the high priests. Why is in the plural? That he was the deputy to the high priests. Generally, like in America, if a president either passes away or he otherwise leaves his position as the president, the vice president becomes a new president. So you would think you have a vice Kohen Gadol. So when the Kohen Gadol passes away, he becomes the Kohen Gadol, he becomes the high priest. So why would he be a vice high priest to many high priests? And the answer is that he was living in the times of the Romans. He was the one who was supposed to be the high priest. He was the great saint and the great scholar. He deserved to be the high priest. But the Romans wanted someone who would listen to them, who not would do what the Torah says, but do what the government says. Now, and it's interesting because this same Rabbi Chanina Gana Kohanim, he was the one who taught. It says in the Talmud in the Pirkei Avos, having mispal b'shalom shel malchus, that person should pray for the peace of the government. If it was not for the fear of the government, if there was anarchy, people would swallow each other alive. So he was a pro-government person who was persecuted by the government because the government thought they couldn't control him, because his loyalty was to God and not to the government. And yet his religion taught him to be loyal to his government. But the thing was that he understood that the power comes from God, not from government. As our country was one of the first in history to recognize that. Most see, the ancient biblical, Israel, Judea, when the kings were righteous people, occasionally they also recognized that, but that's also the foundation, and that was, of course, the foundation of ancient biblical Israel, not to be confused with the current country that occupies that land and stole that name. But which didn't even recognize God in their founding. It's at Sur Yisrael level, which we whatever. I don't have to talk about that. It's not even worth talking about. But this country was founded on the idea of God-given rights and liberties. Anyway, that's so the same thing. He read Yahu, maybe he was an ancestor of his. He was also a Kohen, also a priest. Jeremiah the prophet, who said to pray for the welfare of the city where I sent you, and because of that, he said, Rabbi Hanina said that we should pray for the government. And even the corrupt Roman government, we were told to pray for them. That's why we pray, even if we disagree with different things in the government. We still pray for the president, the vice president. Even if we didn't vote for them, we don't agree with them, we still pray for them. Because if there was anarchy, it would be much worse. And yet he was denied his proper position as the high priest. And the Romans, they appointed their puppet high priests. And every year, when the high priest went into the Holy of Holies, in general, as a precaution, they would tie a rope around him just in case he died when he went in there, because no one else could go in. They'd have to schlep him out. And here, it happened time and time again, every year. The Kohen Gadol would go into the Kodesh Kodashim, and he would leave this world because he wasn't fit, he wasn't worthy to go into the Holy of Holies. And so he would leave this world because of that sin of going in when he wasn't really worthy to it. Many times, even the Kohanim Gadolim, they didn't even know Hebrew. We see in the Mishnah and Yuma that they would try to keep the Kohen Gadol awake the night of Yom Kippur all night long, and so they would read the Bible to him, and so one of the rabbis said he would read Daniel. And so some of the commentators note maybe he read Daniel because Daniel was in Aramaic, not in Hebrew. Because maybe the Kohen Gadol didn't know Hebrew, but he knew Aramaic. That was the lingua franca. So that's and Rabbi Fishman explained that's what the Chassam Sofer brings. He said that question is, when that Kohen Gadol would die, would the people in the cities of refuge go free? And his answer was no, because the whole idea of the passing of the high priest is that's our father, and that would overshadow the grief of the loss of a family member to lose such a great leader. When these men were not great leaders, so nobody cared when they left this world, and so when they left this world, no one would go free. But then they would say, look, it says in the Bible, and they would demand to go free. No, that would be, they would say no, because this is, so then they try to pay ransom or something. That would be the reason for that. Now, it gives me a kasha. I have a question on this. Just in general, not really on this, but this reminds me of a question. It's really also linked to what I said about that the Kohen Gadol, they would read to him even sometimes from Daniel, because Kohen Gadol sometimes he didn't know anything. He was totally ignorant. So my question was, we have a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. It says, so Nisim Nasa Lavasenu Beis Mikdash, there were 10 miracles happened in the temple, and one Shalir Eri Kohen Gadol B'Yom Kippurim. One of the 10 miracles is that the high priest never had an emission which would render him impure on Yom Kippur, on Day of Atonement, which would make it that he wouldn't be allowed to perform the avoda, to perform the service in the temple. My kasha on that is, what's it talking about? If he was going to die, if it was a worthy high priest, I understand. But if it was an unworthy high priest, as was during the time of the Roman occupation, so it wouldn't have been better that he'd be Balkari, that he wouldn't be allowed to go into Kodesh Kodashim. Alright, maybe the miracles Rabbi Chanina's Gana Kahanim didn't have, but he wasn't the Kohen Gadol. Technically, maybe that's the answer, but wouldn't it be the greater miracle that he would have be Balkari, and then his life would be saved and he could live another year? But so one answer could be that maybe we're talking about Rabbi Chanina's Gana Kahanim that he never had. But another explanation is that that's the miracle, is to get rid of those type of Kohanim Gadolim that were not really worthy of the position because they were not pious and saintly at all, and certainly not scholars. Some positive, maybe they weren't even Kohanim at all. Who knows? Probably they were, but especially because the Kohanim, a lot of them were Tzedukim, a lot of them were Sadducees. So it's just pretty sad, you see. So anyway, that's my kasha, and those are the possible answers to it. So, alright, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I notice the vast majority of people who watch my videos are not subscribed. So please subscribe, and you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and feel free to make comments below. Introduces a note of chizik. Is Nachman Breslover says that when it says La'ir Keri L'Kohen Gadol V'Yom Kippurim, that's a nace, it's a miracle. That if someone suffers from that, they shouldn't feel bad because in Samchan al Nace we shouldn't consider ourselves worthy of miracles, and it takes a miracle to avoid something like that. So it should be a little bit of chizik. All right, have hatzlacha Rabbe and a gute Vach. Take care.